What are you doing in this hospital? What's in that case?
That's Mr. Morrison from Therapeutic Services.
I'm showing you my employee ID right now. I work in Therapeutic Services.
I
use this guitar for music therapy with pediatric patients.
Steven, what badge you're showing
Open it
me?
right now so I can verify what's inside.
This is unbelievable.
I'm being detained for going.
Hashtag racist security guard calls cop on black man in hospital with a guitar case. Fired after $920,000 payout. Hospital security guard Steven Walsh, employee number 2847 with 6 years at Memorial Medical Center, saw a black man walking through the main lobby carrying a guitar case and immediately assumed he was either trespassing, attempting to steal medical equipment, or planning something dangerous. Without asking any questions, without checking with the front desk, and despite the man calmly explaining he was a music therapist employed by the hospital arriving for his scheduled shift to work with pediatric patients, Walsh followed him aggressively through the hallways, demanded he open the guitar case to prove it contained a guitar and not weapons or stolen property. And when the man refused this humiliating and baseless demand, Walsh called hospital police claiming there was a suspicious individual refusing to cooperate with security protocols. When hospital officer Derek Martinez arrived and began questioning the man, music therapist James Morrison calmly showed his hospital employee ID badge, his departmental access card, and his work schedule showing he was exactly where he was supposed to be at exactly the right time. Despite this clear proof that Morrison was a hospital employee doing his job, Walsh insisted Morrison had bypassed security screening and that his presence in the building was unauthorized, demanding Martinez detain him for trespassing until proper verification could be completed. What neither Walsh nor Martinez knew was that they had just racially profiled and detained a highly respected music therapist who had worked at Memorial Medical Center for 8 years, that the entire incident was captured on the hospital's extensive security camera system, showing Walsh's baseless harassment and false accusations, and that Morrison's decision to file a discrimination lawsuit against both the hospital and the security company would end with Walsh's immediate termination, Martinez's suspension and retraining, a $920,000 settlement that would bankrupt the security contractor's insurance, and viral security footage with 67 million views that would force the entire healthcare industry to examine how racial bias affects hospital security practices and employment discrimination. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where you're tuning in from. If you believe going to work while black shouldn't result in being detained by security, then like this video and subscribe. James Morrison walked through the main entrance of Memorial Medical Center at exactly 8:55 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in early September, 5 minutes before his scheduled 9 a.m. shift as the hospital's music therapist. At 41 years old, Morrison had worked at Memorial for 8 years, providing therapeutic music sessions to patients in the pediatric ward, the cancer treatment center, and the rehabilitation unit. His work involved using music, playing guitar, leading singing, teaching rhythm exercises to help patients manage pain, reduce anxiety, improve motor skills, and find moments of joy during difficult medical treatments. Morrison was well known and well-liked throughout the hospital. Nurses appreciated how his sessions calmed anxious children before procedures. Doctors had seen measurable improvements in patient outcomes when music therapy was integrated into treatment plans. Parents were grateful for the smiles Morrison brought to their sick children's faces. His supervisor had written in his most recent performance review that Morrison was an invaluable asset to our therapeutic services team, and that patients and staff consistently praise his professionalism, compassion, and skill. On this particular Tuesday morning, Morrison was carrying his professional guitar in its hardshell case, along with his employee ID badge clipped to his belt, his departmental access card in his pocket, and a folder containing his schedule for the day showing which patients he would be seeing. He was dressed in his usual work attire: khaki pants, a polo shirt with the hospital's music therapy department logo, and comfortable shoes suitable for walking between patient rooms all day. He entered through the main lobby, a large, well-lit space with a reception desk, waiting areas, elevators to patient floors, and hallways leading to various departments. Morrison had entered through this same entrance hundreds of times over 8 years. He knew the security guards by name. He knew the reception staff. He knew the volunteers at the information desk. This was his workplace, familiar and routine. But Steven Walsh, working the security desk that morning, saw something different. Walsh, who had worked hospital security for 6 years, saw a black man carrying what he immediately decided looked suspicious. A large hard case that could contain anything. In Walsh's biased mind, a black man with a case in a hospital could only mean trouble. Stolen equipment being removed from the building, weapons being brought in, or some other criminal activity that required immediate intervention. Walsh didn't consider that Morrison might be an employee. He didn't look at the hospital logo on Morrison's shirt. He didn't notice the employee ID badge clipped to Morrison's belt. He didn't think to check with the reception desk 10 feet away to ask if they recognized this person. He simply saw a black man with a case and decided to act. Walsh stood up from his security desk and called out loudly, his voice carrying across the lobby and causing patients and visitors to turn and stare. "Excuse me, sir. Stop right there." Morrison turned, confused by the aggressive tone. He recognized Walsh as one of the security guards, though they'd never interacted much. "Good morning," Morrison said politely, assuming Walsh was greeting him. Walsh walked toward Morrison with an aggressive posture, his hand resting on his radio. "What are you doing in this hospital? What's in that case?" Morrison's confusion deepened. "I work here. I'm James Morrison, music therapist. I'm on my way to the pediatric ward for my morning sessions." Walsh's face showed he didn't believe a word. "You work here? I've never seen you before. I need to see some identification and I need you to open that case." Morrison felt the familiar sinking feeling that came with being racially profiled, something he'd experienced too many times in his life but never at his own workplace. He kept his voice calm and professional. "I've worked here for 8 years. I'm wearing my hospital ID badge right here." He gestured to the badge on his belt. "I'm a music therapist in the therapeutic services department. I'm heading to my scheduled shift." Walsh barely glanced at the badge. "That could be fake. Open the case. I need to verify what you're carrying." Morrison's jaw tightened. "This is my guitar. I use it for music therapy sessions with patients. I'm not opening it in the lobby. I'm an employee heading to work." Walsh's hand moved to his radio. "If you refuse to cooperate with security screening, I'm going to have to call for backup." "What are you trying to hide?" A woman at the reception desk, Maria Santos, had been watching the interaction with growing alarm. She'd worked at the reception desk for 12 years and knew Morrison well. She stood up and called over, "Steven, that's Mr. Morrison. He's our music therapist. He works here." Walsh barely acknowledged her. "I'm conducting a security verification. Please stay out of this." Morrison pulled out his employee ID badge and held it toward Walsh. "Here, look at my badge. It has my photo, my name, my department, and my employee number. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Walsh took the badge and examined it with exaggerated suspicion. "How do I know this is real? How do I know you didn't steal this or fake it? You need to come with me to security until we can verify your employment." Morrison's patience was wearing thin, but he maintained his composure. "You can verify my employment by calling the Therapeutic Services Department. You can check with HR. You can ask literally anyone who works in this hospital. I've been here for 8 years. I see patients every day. I'm not opening my guitar case because you've decided to profile me." Walsh's face flushed with defensive anger at the word profile. "This has nothing to do with race. This is about hospital security. You're carrying a suspicious case and refusing to cooperate. That's a security threat." "A music therapist carrying a guitar to work is not a security threat," Morrison said, his voice firm but still controlled. "This is racial profiling and it's discrimination against a hospital employee." Walsh pulled out his radio. "Security to hospital police. I have a suspicious individual in the main lobby refusing to cooperate with security screening. I need an officer to the front lobby immediately." Morrison stood his ground, his guitar case at his side, his employee credentials visible, while Walsh called for police backup to deal with an employee trying to go to work. Within 3 minutes, hospital police officer Derek Martinez arrived. Martinez worked for the hospital's in-house police department, officers employed by the hospital to handle security incidents, medical emergencies requiring police presence, and other situations requiring law enforcement within the medical center. Walsh immediately approached Martinez with his version of events. This individual entered the building with a large case. He claims to be an employee, but I've never seen him before. He's refusing to open the case for security inspection and refusing to provide adequate identification. I believe he may be trespassing or attempting to remove hospital property. Martinez turned to Morrison. Sir, can you explain why you're here? Morrison, now exhausted by the absurdity of being questioned by police at his own workplace, spoke with careful precision. Officer Martinez, my name is James Morrison. I'm a music therapist employed by Memorial Medical Center. I've worked here for 8 years in the Therapeutic Services Department. I arrived this morning at 8:55 for my 9 a.m. shift. I'm carrying my guitar, which I use in my therapeutic sessions with patients. I have my employee ID badge, my departmental access card, and my schedule for today. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, at exactly the right time, doing exactly what I'm employed to do. He handed Martinez his employee badge, his access card, and his printed schedule showing his patient appointments for the day. Martinez examined the documents. The employee badge looked legitimate. It had Morrison's photo, his name, music therapist, Therapeutic Services Department, and an employee number. The access card had the hospital's logo and security features. The schedule was printed on official hospital letterhead showing appointments in the pediatric ward and cancer center. This looks legitimate, Martinez said, glancing at Walsh. These credentials appear to be real hospital ID. Walsh stepped forward. But how do we know he didn't steal them? How do we know he's really this James Morrison? He needs to be detained until we can verify with HR that he actually works here. Morrison's control finally snapped slightly. I've shown you my employee badge. I've shown you my schedule. I've shown you my access card. The receptionist confirmed she knows me. I'm wearing a shirt with the hospital's Therapeutic Services logo. What more verification do you need to stop detaining me from doing my job? Martinez looked uncomfortable, recognizing that this situation was becoming problematic. Mr. Morrison, I understand your frustration. Let me call the Therapeutic Services Department and confirm your employment, and we can resolve this quickly. He pulled out his phone and called the hospital's Therapeutic Services office. The department coordinator, Linda Chun, answered. Hi, this is Officer Martinez with Hospital Police. I'm in the lobby with someone who says he's James Morrison, music therapist. Can you confirm his employment and schedule? Linda's voice came through clearly, tinged with concern. Yes, James Morrison works here. He's been our music therapist for 8 years. He has patients scheduled this morning starting at 9 o'clock. Is there a problem? Martinez looked at Walsh, then at Morrison. No problem, ma'am. Just verifying. Thank you. He hung up and turned to Morrison. Your employment is confirmed. I apologize for the inconvenience. You're free to go to your shift. Morrison's eyes were cold. This wasn't an inconvenience. This was racial profiling. I was stopped, questioned, accused of theft and trespassing, threatened with detention, and had police called on me while trying to go to work at a job I've held for 8 years. The only reason this happened is because Mr. Walsh saw a black man with a case and assumed criminality. Walsh's face reddened. That's not true. I was following security protocols. Your security protocols don't include harassing employees who are clearly wearing their ID badges and arriving for scheduled shifts. Morrison cut him off. And your protocols apparently include ignoring the receptionist who confirmed my identity because you'd already decided I was suspicious. Morrison looked at Martinez. I'll be filing a formal complaint with hospital administration and with HR about this incident. I'm an employee who was racially profiled and detained while trying to do my job. That's discrimination and it's illegal. He picked up his guitar case and walked toward the elevators, now 15 minutes late for his first patient appointment because he'd been detained by security at his own workplace. Walsh called after him. You still haven't opened that case. How do I know there's actually a guitar in there? Morrison didn't turn around. File a formal request through proper channels if you think an 8-year employee's guitar is a security threat. I have patients waiting. As Morrison disappeared into the elevator, Walsh turned to Martinez. You're just going to let him go? What if that case doesn't contain a guitar? What if he's stealing equipment or bringing weapons into the building? Martinez looked at Walsh with barely concealed disgust. He's a verified employee with confirmed credentials going to his scheduled shift. Unless you have actual evidence of criminal activity, which you don't, there's no basis to detain him further. And between you and me, this looked a lot like racial profiling. Morrison went to his shift and worked with his scheduled patients, but the encounter stayed with him throughout the day. He'd been humiliated in front of patients and visitors in the hospital lobby. He'd been accused of theft and trespassing at his own workplace. He'd been threatened with detention for trying to go to work. And it had happened solely because a security guard had seen a black man with a guitar case and assumed criminality. After his shift, Morrison filed formal complaints with hospital HR, the hospital's patient and employee relations office, and the security company that employed Walsh. He also contacted an attorney specializing in employment discrimination and civil rights. The investigation that followed uncovered a pattern of discriminatory behavior by Walsh that the hospital and security company had failed to address. Over his 6 years at Memorial Medical Center, Walsh had stopped and questioned black employees, visitors, and contractors at rates far exceeding his treatment of white individuals in the hospital. Hospital security camera footage review showed that Walsh had made 89 stops or interventions over the previous year. Of those 89 stops, 71 involved black or Hispanic individuals. Of those 71 stops, 58 were later determined to have had no legitimate security basis. They were employees going to work, patients going to appointments, or visitors going to see family members. Most damningly, footage showed that Walsh had walked past multiple white individuals carrying similar cases, bags, and equipment without stopping any of them for questioning. A contractor carrying power tools had walked past Walsh's desk 3 times in 1 week without being stopped. A white employee carrying a large photography equipment case had entered the building the same day Morrison was stopped, and Walsh had waved and smiled at him without requesting any verification. Internal emails showed that Walsh had received 2 previous informal complaints about his treatment of black employees and visitors. Both complaints had been dismissed by his security company supervisor as misunderstandings without proper investigation. The hospital had never been informed of these complaints, meaning they had no opportunity to address Walsh's pattern of bias. Morrison's attorney also discovered that Walsh had a history at previous security positions. He'd been quietly let go from a retail security job after complaints about disproportionately stopping black customers for shoplifting checks. He'd left another hospital security position by mutual agreement after complaints from black medical staff about his aggressive questioning. The security company that employed Walsh had failed to properly vet his employment history, had dismissed complaints without investigation, and had placed him in a position where his racial bias could affect hospital employees and patients. Morrison filed a federal lawsuit against both Memorial Medical Center and the security company, seeking $920,000 in damages for employment discrimination, racial profiling, hostile work environment, emotional distress, and violation of his civil rights. The defendants reviewed the evidence, security footage showing Walsh's disparate treatment of employees based on race, statistical proof of his pattern of stopping minorities, his history of complaints at previous jobs, and witness testimony from other employees who had experienced similar treatment, and recognized they had no defense. Memorial Medical Center settled with Morrison for $520,000, with a settlement agreement requiring comprehensive reforms: immediate termination of their contract with Walsh's security company, implementation of anti-bias training for all security personnel, creation of a system to track security stops by demographic data to identify discriminatory patterns, and establishment of an employee ombudsman to handle complaints of workplace discrimination. The security company settled for $400,000, the maximum coverage under their liability insurance policy. The settlement bankrupted the small company, which closed within 6 months. Walsh was terminated immediately and found himself unemployable in security due to his documented history of racial profiling. Hospital Police Officer Martinez received a formal reprimand for not immediately recognizing the racial profiling that was occurring and for initially supporting Walsh's detention of Morrison despite clear evidence Morrison was an employee. He was required to complete anti-bias training and diversity education before returning to duty. The security camera footage of Walsh confronting Morrison in the lobby, demanding he open his guitar case, ignoring the receptionist's confirmation of Morrison's identity, and calling police on an employee trying to go to work went viral after being released as part of the lawsuit settlement. The footage reached 67 million views and became a widely shared example of working while black, the experience of black professionals being treated as suspicious or criminal in professional settings, where white colleagues are presumed to belong. The case sparked conversations in the healthcare industry about racial bias in hospital security practices. Multiple hospitals reviewed their security protocols and discovered similar patterns of minority employees and visitors being stopped, questioned, and treated as suspicious at rates far exceeding their proportion of hospital traffic. Professional associations for hospital security personnel developed new training programs specifically addressing racial bias, implicit prejudice, and the importance